Happy Devils Wednesday. Going a little old school. The State of the Fan Address, episode 267. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios in North Jersey and South Jersey. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief Nick Villano, the most commented blogger in the blogosphere in the world. That's what I say. He won't agree with me. But I've been reading a lot of comments about your work, Nick, and you know what? I think people are just trying to troll you, and there's a lot of people that agree with you. And I'm just saying that, I love pucksandpitchforks.com.
Yeah. Hey, listen, there's going to be a lot of opinions. And here's the thing is that over the past 3 years, I think it was 3 years ago when the Devils beat hit a low where NJ.com got rid of it. The Bergen Record got rid of the Devils beat. There was, Dan Rice wasn't at Hockey Writers anymore. I think at that point, Corey Masisak had left Jersey to move to the West Coast. It hit a low where, it was me and the rest of the Pucks and Pitchforks crew. And it was all about the jersey, really. And then, there was a couple others that, Devil's Army blog was in kind of a weird space and they're in a better spot now. But ever since then, and then there was Alex Chavancy who was doing it at the Hockey Writers, and he does a great job. Now you have more Devils content than you can ever. I'm sorry. You have more.
Peter Seifert. I
literally read the comment. I read the comment
right before.
It threw me off. You have more. You have more media. You have podcasts. You have more articles. You have more
mediums.
YouTube links. You have
mediums.
more. Yeah, there you go. You have more but it's not. You have more places to go to ingest simply Devils content, which is interesting. Right?
Oh my! You're killing me.
You're now throwing me off. You're throwing me off now.
Look.
You're throwing me off.
Let me wordsmith it for you. For all your Devils needs, whether it's podcasts, blogs, videos, short videos, info. I don't like the I word either. Celebrities,
long form.
Yeah, long form articles, documentaries, whatnot.
Anyway, I'm gonna get to my point. You have more places to go than ever for Devils information, for Devils consumption.
That's a good C word. Good C word.
Okay.
Replace that. Consumption. Yes. Good. Thank you.
And this is all to say, Sam, that with all this competition, I think we did our best month ever last month at pucksandpitchforks.com. We did 480,000 page views. I was a little sad we didn't get to 500,000, but I'd have to check the archives. I'm pretty sure that is the most we've ever done when the competition's at the highest. And, you know, we are one of the top 5 hockey blogs on the Fansided Network. We're the #1 New Jersey Devils fan site, according to multiple different metrics. You know, the social media, we've been, you know, people have been following us, people have been gaining. And, you know, I just can't thank this fan base enough for, I think that powering through during those dark times. And I'm sure, you know, I don't talk numbers with the other blogs or the other podcasters or the other whoever, you know, it's not, so, you know, I share my numbers. I'm very open and honest about it.
You are the Howard Stern of Devils podcasting. You are the king of all media, Nick.
And here's the thing is that I don't know if everybody knows this. This is not my day job. This is something I do on the side of my desk, you know, but we continue to deliver. And I think that's where it comes down to, you know, we have a diverse array of opinions. You know, not every opinion is my opinion. I have more than 10 writers writing for me at all times, and that's how I like it, because I want you to get every kind of opinion. You can have wild opinions, you can have normal, you know, more normal opinions, or whatever, mainstream opinions, is I guess what we call. You know, as long as you back it up with data and information, like I'm here for, I want every kind of writer under my scope. And here's the thing about that is that we, you know, I just can't thank this fan base enough for always seemingly having my back, always seemingly consuming what I'm putting out there, whether it's articles or podcasts or, you know, social media stuff, all of it. Like this fan base has been great to me. It's been great to us. It's been great to us as a blog and great to us as a podcast. And I just can't thank this place enough, because it motivates you to keep doing more, right? When you're like, all right, like, you know, I'll be honest, Sam, I thought the blog plateaued at 250 about 3 years ago. We were hitting like 250,000 views. So I was like, oh, okay. Like I didn't know this was possible. You know, just to tell, I don't know if I've ever told the story. So when I took over the blog in 2017, at the time it was floundering. You know, it had a peak about 3 years earlier, and that peak was taken and pulled somewhere else that will not be mentioned. But, you know, they took a lot of the things. They burned a lot of bridges on their way out, and
they gutted it, didn't they? They just gutted it. They hollowed it out.
What was valuable about it and left nothing.
Sounds like a hedge fund, but go ahead.
You know, maybe it was, you know, a Josh Harris pseudonym. Who knows? But so what happened was they handed me a website that was doing 20,000 views a month. And like they actually gave it to me to me and this guy named Corey. And there's like, try something out. I'm like, okay. So like we started slow, and Corey ended up falling off just because he just didn't want to put a lot of work in. He had gotten a new job and whatever. Like I'm not here to judge people. It is what it is. So it was me and I think 2 other writers. Like, okay, I can either rush job this and do this wrong, or we could take it slow, lose a little bit in the beginning, but really, and that was the end of the 2016-17 season. So I don't know if you remember that season. That was just a boring season. That was it was either the first or the second Taylor Hall season, but there's not a lot to talk about with him. Like he was just kind of some guy at that point, like a 60-point player, which is like, what are you going to do with that?
He wasn't over his old girlfriend, the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, that was basically the headlines. He misses the Edmonton Oilers. like he wants to rehab. Like it's like Ray was like, get over it, and then he had
Right.
an MVP, Hart Trophy season. So
Well, that was the thing, is that that's when Ray Shero had the heart to heart with him, where it was like, "What do you want? You want us to trade you?" He's like, "Oh, no, 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 I don't want that." It's like, okay, well then get over all this.
yeah,
Like, move on. You're
yeah,
here now, and that's when he woke up. He had the MVP season, um, and that's when we really started to ramp it up. Was during that season, because like now it's some things to talk about. Like, what's going on here? We have a fun season ahead of us. If you remember, like that season was crazy. Like Brian Boyle got diagnosed with cancer to start the season.
yep.
And then he came back and had probably like that despite the playoff end, as far as a regular season goes, just because of where I was with the blog and just because of what happened that season, all the moments, and just being so ingrained in those moments, being trying to build this website, trying to rebuild this brand. It was one of my most fun seasons, and the Brian Boyle thing is just honestly like one of the coolest things that I've ever got to like follow and cover. And I've loved Brian Boyle ever since then, just because it was so majestic. I don't know if that's the right word. I feel like that's a word we use for horses, but it was like seeing him score in Hockey Fights Cancer Night. He scored on two, right? He scored one in New Jersey and one in Pittsburgh, right? He scored the hat trick in Pittsburgh or something like that. I'm trying to remember the exact details, but it was the season of all seasons, and yet the MVP season, the first of all time in New Jersey Devils history. This team with like a pretty decent amount of history, despite the fact that it took 10 years to do anything, right? But they had these crazy runs, these fun runs, and now looking back, we're looking at what was it, 7 years, around 7 years.
I'd like to interrupt because before we get off topic, if you don't mind, I just want to make a point. Because you talk about Brian Boyle, okay? It's actually relevant with the Let's Go Devils podcast because that was around the time that we started. So it's very. This is before you and I met. This is before you were our first guest. But something that connected in my head when you were talking about Brian Boyle and the cancer. If you remember, believe it or not, Brian Boyle's child and I have one thing in common. If you remember that there was a cancer scare with his kid, I believe, he and I both had AVM.
No.
And, again, it's found in children, okay? I found it later in life. And a month after, I knew about it before my wedding. Got married to Mrs. Wu, but 2 weeks before the wedding, let's just say, and I'm revealing this out. I'm putting myself out there, my medical records, but I went to a foot doctor to be like, okay, what's this under my foot? And you get that call, you need to get in here. And I saw a specialist, and he said, just have fun on your wedding, have fun on the honeymoon, we'll schedule you. So 1 month after I got married, I had surgery and found out we thought it was a tumor, thought it was something, like it, didn't know what it was. Like it was in my foot, but it wasn't showing, right?
Right.
Turned out when I got the diagnosis, the doctor comes in, he said, you hit the lottery ticket of all diagnosis. It's nothing. This is no one would have thought that at the time as an adult that it would be found in the most non-lethal way as an adult. So, but because of that surgery, my foot was up, and that's how the podcast started. Just like that, because I had nothing effing to do. And it started as a Facebook Live bit. Nobody knew that my foot was like in Saving Private Ryan. Guts were all over the place. And that's how this podcast starts. So I had to interrupt you because you were talking about that. But nobody knew that story. I don't think I even told you about that.
No, I don't think I did know that.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love those stories and what's behind the motivation. And you look at it, it's funny how things start. And now it's, a venture.
Yeah.
Whether it's money making or it's feeding the fire of our souls. Like it's
I do it
it's
for
really
my
good.
ego. I do it for my ego. I need to have a
That's
big
what
head.
Twitter says.
Yes. No.
The Twitter sphere. They say it.
That's what they say.
that
I just get a good kick out of why people are just like, acting the way they are. But anyway.
But I do want to talk about the New Jersey Devils. I just wanted to thank everybody. We've done enough backslapping, but I want to talk about the team because there are some moves still happening. Ryan Suter just signed with St. Louis. As we were coming on the podcast, I think it's like around $3 million for that older defenseman, bringing a veteran presence to a team that has too many veteran defensemen anyway, but it's neither here nor there. We heard about restricted free agent compensation today. Not that anybody will use it, but some restricted free agents out there, like Jeremy Swayman and things like that. Devils cannot get into the restricted free agent game due to the rules. They do not have a first round pick. Well, sorry, they do not have a. There are protections on their first round pick. And if it's after 10, they do not have it. They don't have a third round pick. And there's a consternation on their second round pick. So they literally can't offer any restricted free agent contract to anybody because there are ties to the first, second, and third round pick. So just to answer that question for anybody, the Devils can't offer anything to anybody. No Jeremy Swayman, no. I don't even know who else would be even a conceivable. Like I know Philip Broberg in Edmonton. A lot of people are talking about him. There's a couple people, but Devils can't do it. They're out of the race. And Tom Fitzgerald said last week, well, they're done. Tom Fitzgerald was it. Dawson Mercer will get resigned. I expect Nolan Foote to get resigned. I think Dawson Mercer is going to he's going to be the odd man out because he's going to end up probably accepting. If I were to predict, Sam, I think Mercer's contract is going to look a lot like Pavel Zacha's, which was like something around 3 years, and then just adjusted for inflation, probably about like 3.2, something in that realm.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. My number was 3.2, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Zacha got like 2.75 or something like that. So I'd say with inflation, like 3.2 makes sense.
Wow, you sound like a finance whiz right now.
Hey, listen.
Hey,
the day job is starting to get to me.
You and I need to talk about this off air with this whole cap-friendly thing. You know what we should do? We should start a website called richhockeyplayers.com, and it'll be even better site than cap-friendly.
There's a couple people that are much smarter than me. I don't want to speak for you, but they're much smarter than me that are already starting it. Puckpedia has been good, and I'm going to kind of dig into them a little bit deeper just to kind of see some of the features that they're going to have. Cap friendly, just they did a yeoman's work. I just wish there was another way, but
mine's going to have the beefalytics. Mine's going to have the beefalytics to go along with the cap space.
You should just. I hope you bought beefalytics.com. I hope you did.
No,
I hope it's already.
You know what? You shouldn't mention that on air if you really mean that, because somebody's going to register right now, and I'm going to be pissed.
Just GoDaddy. Just GoDaddy that. Just have the jointhecrew.com. Just redirect to beefalytics.com.
No, it's join our crew.
Our crew, sorry. Joinourcrew.com.
Yep. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to distract you.
You have ideas. But yeah, I think that Mercer's going to sign, and it's a little bit more than a bridge deal. I think the Devils don't want to just give him a traditional 2-year. Because that walks him right to arbitration, and the Devils hate arbitration. the way it went so terribly with Jesper Bratt those couple of years, Tom Fitzgerald is trying to avoid that situation like the plague. He has no interest in it. None. He does not want to deal with it. He does not he cut Michael McLeod and Nathan Bastian last year and called their bluff. And that was the interesting thing, right? Because people thought that Michael McLeod was going to get a decent bump in arbitration just because of the importance that he had to the team. And Fitzgerald was like, no, go get it somewhere else. And, they both came back with their tail between their legs. And we all know what happened with McLeod. He got arrested for an alleged sexual assault. Bastian got hurt all year. They're now out of the McLeod business. But the point being is that the Devils had wanted nothing to do with arbitration. And I think he's going to push this out as far as he can just to avoid that, right? You don't want to send them to UFA to avoid arbitration, but I think he'll just take it right before then. Or he'll sign him for a year, right? Because I don't think he's eligible for arbitration next year. I'd have to double check. And I'll just sign him for a year. It'll be a low contract comparatively, right? He's not going to give him $4 million for a year. He's going to give him $2 million. And then he's going to have more flexibility next year when the cap goes up again. I did this article earlier this year. And I was super intrigued by it. But the Devils, I think, I got to remember the exact number off the top of my head, but the Devils spent something like over $100 million on the roster this year. That's because there's big payments to Timo Meier. There's a really big payment to Dougie Hamilton. I think Jack Hughes had a really big payment this year. A lot of these players are having their highest salary last year. And I mentioned in the article, that might be a reason why maybe ownership or maybe, some of the people who cover the bottom line were really pushing to stay in the playoff race. Do not tank. We need playoff revenue. This is still a business kind of look. But vis-a-vis, because of that, the Devils have more cash to spend in future years, right? Once you get that bad year out of the way, you have cash flow, right? You have money coming in that you could spend, and you can be a little bit more strategic with your contracts. I think you're going to start seeing that starting next year. I think this year you're pretty much locked into what you're going to do. I have to look at the Pesci contract and the Dillon contract. I saw the Dillon contract. It's a little bit more this year than it is in the last year. And then next year is kind of the one in between. But he's not, it's discernible. I have to look at the Pesci contract to see if there's any kind of intricacies, like a big signing bonus somewhere or something like that. But this is all to say, Mercer's going to sign for a reasonable number, I think. They're going to have enough money to give Nolan Foote a one-way deal. And then you kind of have to figure out, how do you finagle the cap moving forward? That, when do you jump? They're going to want to accrue cap space throughout the season so they can make a trade at the deadline. But you, that's hard when you're close to the cap, as close to the cap as the Devils are going to be after the Nolan Foote contract. And then, of course, there's long-term injured reserve. So if anyone gets hurt, you put them on LTIR, and then you can replace them. Like, say, Palat gets hurt, you can trade for $2-3 million players or a $6 million player, and as long as Palat doesn't come back during the regular season, that'll work. I think you're going to start seeing the Devils, unless they make a rule that disallows it. We saw the Lightning do it. We saw Vegas do it. We've seen teams utilize the strategy where people get hurt, you hold them out a little bit longer, and you utilize that in the playoffs. I think the Devils are going to start doing some of that cap management strategy, and everybody's going to whine and complain about it, and we're not going to care. And one last point on just the cap. I think there's a reason why Tomas Tatar's number is where it is. It's high for the season he had, $1.8 million. But if he has another season like he had last season, or like he had with Colorado, he actually was decent with Seattle. But if he has another season like he had with Colorado, you can make a trade for an upgrade with a team that's in the tank. And they don't care about the salary that's coming back. So you got a $1.8 million salary that you can move out. I'm not thinking about the worst case scenario with Tatar. I do think it's going to work. I think it was a good signing. But I do think that the money was strange, but I think there's a reason why it was strange.
Well, this is what I would do if I was Tom Fitzgerald. Be like, hey, pull out LTIR. Let's see who else we can, take off for a couple months. Tatar, you're 1.8 LTIR.
But then they can't come back.
Did they change the rule?
I mean, like say they could come back in the playoffs. They can't come back before that.
That's the whole point I was trying to make.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's not about the regular season. It's about winning the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, if you want to be a copycat model of the Vegas Golden Knights, the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? That's what they say.
Yeah, but I think Tommy Fitz is better than that. So,
I mean, they avoided it at all costs last year, and then they finally did it, and, it was too late, but...
I mean, but these were legitimate. These were legitimate injuries. I'm sorry, but, the Mark Stone thing, it's like, come on. Who are you fooling?
Yeah. The Kucherov one, I think, was the most egregious, and I was covering the Lightning at the time. I was like, are we really going to put our heads in the sand? Oh, he's practicing in February, but he won't be ready until June or May or whatever.
And you know what? And it's BS too. All this is BS. The Devils were victims of the whole Kovalchuk contract, and I mean. Could the guy? I mean, when you look at the Chris Pronger contract, down the turnpike, like I thought that was worse than Kovalchuk. My conspiracy theory, because I like to talk NHL conspiracy theories, is I think the Kovalchuk contract that really irked Bettman versus the Chris Pronger one was the Devils' checks at the time could not cash. And they
there was a vendetta.
Yeah,
it was, there was probably some money owed to the league. There was probably some things we don't know about, right?
Yeah. And what could have
been? I've been trying to get.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I've been trying to get Vanderbeek on this podcast forever, and I will absolutely ask him that once we finally get him on here.
I'll tell you. If we ever had Jeff Vanderbeek on, I will ask him questions about being a fan, being a season ticket holder, and taking on that responsibility, from the Devils' only owner, which is John McMullen, but he was part of that Yank Nets group. And then actually taking it on. And if it wasn't for Jeff Vanderbeek, there would be no Prudential Center. He took one for the team, and people don't realize it. The finances involved, the balloon, the housing bubble at its highest peak, all of Newark politics, Sharp James, and then, eventually Cory Booker, and just all the – I don't know how he got it to Newark, but he did. And we were the bastard stepchild at the Meadowlands. And the last few years at the Meadowlands, the way the security treated us, the ushers, the parking, they treated us like crap. You don't know about this, Nick, but I've got stories. Throwing hats on the ice for a hat trick got you kicked out of the game, like that kind of stuff, because not many people know this. The people that they hired for Continental Airlines Arena and Brendan Byrne, these unions, they came out of New York. They were all Ranger fans, and I wouldn't say all.
I mean, I've been to Continental quite a few times. I was younger, but
well, you're a
wait.
kid. I mean, they were. I heard of a story where you're not supposed to bring food and drinks inside, that kind of crap, and they were ripping candy out of kids' mouths, like that kind of crap.
They moved to Prudential 2007.
Yes.
So I was out of high school. Like I've been to, I was an adult going to Continental.
Wow, you make me feel old.
Well, I mean, I said it was out of high school. I didn't tell you how long I was out of high school, but I was out of high school.
I was actually an adult, in name only.
Well, yeah. But anyway, he's, there's a couple white whales that we've been trying to get. The two, I mean, we've gotten a lot of them, right? But the two I really want is, the one is Vanderbeek. Obviously, we'd love to get Brodeur on, but it's just hard with what he's doing now. I've always tried to get Bobby Holik on, and he's just a really hard guy to get in contact with because he kind of like lives in the woods. So like he has his people that like facilitate these things for him, and when you have to deal with the people and explain like what you are, always harder. You know what I mean? Like unless I'm like contacting like ESPN. Like ESPN has great people. But when I'm hiring somebody's people, like Bobby Holik's people, it's hard. And then the other white whale is Tom Galiti. He's just like hard to contact, man. He doesn't have like a lot of
Are you serious? Why don't you talk to me?
I talk to you I've been telling you about Tom Galiti all the time.
All right, we'll talk off air.
Okay. Anyway, those are the three that I'd really like to get on. Yeah. And I've built a relationship with the Devils. I think that we could start asking for more. But that's for a conversation for another day. Mm-hmm. We have like about 10 minutes left, Sam. I do want to ask you. I've seen a lot of national hype for this team that usually doesn't end well for the Devils. When everybody is on the Devils bandwagon and everybody's telling the Devils how great they are, usually ends with them not doing well. Where's your head at with this team? How are you feeling about this team right now?
Well, I was challenging Beer Baron on the Sunday podcast. Not to be negative, I'm not sold at all. I love the beef. Don't get me wrong. I love the potential of it.
I feel like you're the GM this year.
Yeah, well, as Devils fans,
prioritizing playing the corners.
Under the Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment regime, I've always felt that we've been bamboozled the entire time, except for 2 years. That's just me emotionally speaking as a fan. But let me be rational for a minute here. That look, it looks good on paper. I love the beef. I love the attitude. I love the demeanor when they picked the 10th overall pick at the draft. Matt, good friend of the podcast, pointed out to me in a text like they didn't look like they're holly jolly themselves. When they got up on stage, normally they'd be just like with a smile no, they look focused. So, body language matters to me because I'm very observant of the little things about this team just because that's what you do as a fan. But to answer your question, I'm not sold. There's still more to do as far as I'm concerned. I don't think Tom Fitzgerald is done. Maybe for now in the next few weeks. But if they're not moves that are game changers, but they are good pieces. So I don't want to overvaluate the Devils. They did improve, but it could all fall apart, and these could be all busts at the same time. Not likely, but it could be.
My only worry is goaltending depth.
My worry is injuries.
Well, it's kind of like, but so you're protected on defense. You have uh,
Pesci, who could get hurt?
right.
Um,
I mean, they all could get hurt. Like they've all been hurt besides really Luke Hughes and Nemitz, and that's just because they're so
knock
young.
on wood.
But right. But again, I'm just saying, like it's hockey, like it's a physical sport. But if you lose one guy, you got Korsevich who can jump in, and then if you lose two guys, you got D Simone who could jump in. If you lose three guys, you got Santeri Hadaka who could jump in. I think defense you're in good shape, even if you get it.
But it ties so much to the salary cap. You don't have any flexibility there.
Yes and no. Like I think that you're gonna have enough because there's emergency call ups that you can use for Hataka. I think that there's wiggle room there as far as the defense goes. Offense, I'm a little worried. They don't, I would assume like your extra is gonna be McDermott, and like if you lose a Jack Hughes, like you're gonna replace him with McDermott in the lineup, or like say McDermott is in the lineup, you're gonna replace Hughes with Nolan Foote, and then you look at the AHL, and I'm like, you hope Josh Philman does really well, but like this is a 4th-round pick or 6th-round pick, I can't remember, that you're hoping like takes 3 steps forward. And Brian Hallinan, these are just names that's where I'm worried is the forward depth. And they are really top heavy. Like we heard a lot about Tom Fitzgerald not getting the top 6 winger, and Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault picking Nashville over the Devils, and it's true. The Devils lost out on those players to Nashville. And Stamkos, I think, just priced himself out. And you downgraded from them to Tatar. But I think you're fine with the lineup today, right? You got your top 6 is some, when you got Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, like you can play around with the other 2 pieces. And if one of them is Dawson Mercer, which I think it should be, you're really down to one guy. And, I talked about this in an article last week. Paul Cotter played most of his season with William Karlsson and Mark Stone. Like he's played in the top 6. He's a top 6 forward in Vegas. One of the best teams in the league. Do I want him to be that here? No, but he can be. Tomas Tatar was a top 6 forward for this team when they made the playoffs 2 years ago. Eric Hall has played in the top 6. Andre Pillai has played in the top 6. Nathan Bastian has played in the top 6. Like, again, I'm not saying these are ideal options. I would rather, if you're going to be in this position, don't like pigeonhole yourself to Andre Palat in the top 6. Try a bunch of different things, see which one works. That's what's good about having the Myers and the Bratts and the Hugheses and the Hischers is that you can experiment. And as long as you keep the chemistry between, whether it's Bratt, Hischier, and Meyer and Hughes, or, if you want to keep Bratt, Hischier, and Meyer together and let them dominate and then put Hughes with a couple different guys and try to work out the kinks there, I think you have this opportunity to really develop the top 6 and figure out what works best in the top 6. But to Sam's point is I'm looking at depth there. I'm looking at like, what does an injury do? Like, could you survive if Nico Hischier was out for I'm not talking about the season. Like, of course that's going to devastate them, but I'm talking about 3 weeks. Like, what does that do to this lineup if you lose Nico Hischier for 3 weeks? What does an injury to Jesper Bratt do? God forbid. Timo Meyer's the one. Because of just what he brings, just like his all-around game. Like, it's not as important this year as it was last year because he's not the only one laying hits and bringing physicality. Like, I think that had a lot to do with his early season struggles as he was trying to be 3 players at once. I think he can focus a little more this year, but he is your superstar that brings physicality to the team. So losing him would hurt. I think that's where you're looking at pain points, is at the forward group, because you just, you over-index stun defense. Most people are happy with it. I'm happy with it when I look at the lineup. I'm concerned about it when I look at, the formerly cat-friendly page, now the Puckpedia page. I'm looking and I'm like, okay, let me look at the HL. Who are they going to call up? Who are they going to have sitting on the bench that's ready to go? And you're just, I don't like a lot of the options that you're looking at here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, again, these are small things, I think. Overall, like, forward depth, the Devils had a all-time terrible injury year last year. Like, just, all-time terrible. Your worry is Jack Hughes, right? That's the worry, because he's gotten injured more than once. And it's the shoulder, and the shoulder is prone to re-injury. I need an 82-game season from Jack. I need it. I need it like I need air. I need Jack Hughes to play every single game. He's done it once, but it was in a 56-game season. I'm not... Thanks, buddy. You know what I mean? And it wasn't when he was at the peak of his powers, right? I think it was his second season. And, it's... You started to see it that year, but it wasn't there. And then the next year is when he really started to ramp it up. And then, last year was last year. And this kid is too good. I don't want any of these other, situations. And, he's avoided concussions, which is good, right? That's taken out some of those smaller dynamic players like Paul Correa. But, I need a healthy season out of Hughes. I just need 82 games. Give me 82 games and I'll be happy, Sam.
Yeah, I would be happy, and I hope all that surgery and all that, and just taking time off. I think, all these guys are truly 100%. I mean, Dougie Hamilton is a big concern. Jack Hughes is a big concern. Timo Meier, not too concerned, but he was kind of banged up, but he showed up towards the latter part of the season. But what I'm concerned is Pesce, Dillon, Cotter, and the rest that were brought in, that they don't have a hot start. They've got to come into training camp ready, and the Devils right now are in it to win it. I'm not saying that they're cup contenders, but they got to move the needle. They got to be going past the second round. And you bring in Sheldon Keefe, who has a chip on his shoulder. Mm-hmm. He's won everywhere he's gone. The Toronto thing about the first round, I honestly think, first off, that's not his fault. I think there's just some circumstances. Could he done a better job? Who couldn't? But a lot of his luck, and that's the other thing people don't talk about. Like, a lot of it is just puck luck. Bad bounce, injury out of nowhere. He had a hot goaltender going into Game 7, but he got hurt. Keefe. So what do? They had Samsonov.
And they lost in overtime
Yeah.
Because his $11 million winger forgot to play defense on the most dynamic scorer in the NHL, short of Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
That's not coaching. That's, it is luck. And, I get it. It was a microcosm of a lot of different things. And they've won one second round game since he took over. And what did he take over, 2020? Mm-hmm. So I get it. I get why he got fired. I deserved is a weird word, but I expected him to get fired. Just like, the Team USA soccer coach. Like, it's results is what's at the end. You could be a good coach or a bad coach; it doesn't matter as long as you get results.
And also it's
But if you're not
timing
getting
as well.
results, for sure,
Yeah, because a lot of times
it's also
coaches,
market. Like,
yeah,
that's just a hard market. You know what I mean? Like, I think about it. If you got the results, if you got these results from Keefe in New Jersey over the last 4 years, he's still the coach, right? Like, he's not getting fired.
under Tom Fitzgerald, I would say yes. Under Lou Lamoriello, he would have been gone.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Lamoriello's fired a lot of really good coaches. He fired Herb
Patrick
Brooks.
Waugh, yeah. Well, the Herb Brooks thing.
Well, I guess Herb Brooks resigned, right?
Yeah, let me tell you about the Herb Brooks thing because this is before Jacques Lemaire. Back in those days, believe it or not, the locker room was a problem. There were guys that were just bickering against each other. I should actually ask Bruce Driver if that's true because the rumors were that, like, Claude Lemieux was a pain. This guy is a pain. This guy doesn't get along with this guy for whatever reason. I don't know if there's any personal issues or whatever. The locker room was not in sync. It wasn't a team. It was a team of individuals. But they did make the playoffs. And then you get Jacques Lemaire that brought the team concept, respect, honor, and they listened. And the first practice, even Ken Danico said he learned more in the first practice than his whole career. I mean, he's sarcastically saying that, but it's just that's coaching right there, right? But Herb Brooks, again, if you watch, I'm based on the documentaries and the movie Miracle, that he challenged his players so hard that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Somebody told me once about coaching that if every day is a fire drill, there's never an emergency. Mm-hmm. And there's just no urgency. There's no, like, okay, you're going to yell at me about this. You're going to scream. Like, okay. Like, it becomes white noise. It's just the background to your life. It's the background to your employment. I mean, we've all worked for bad bosses. Like, think about it. Like, if it's all yelling and screaming at everybody equally, like, all right, well, I'm not going to react to this. And we've seen that again. We've seen that in every sport. Every sport is. We hear about, like, it's just.
Well,
that was like the beauty of, like, a Bill Parcells, right? Bill Parcells was like a no nonsense coach. He's not a team friendly coach, but he's also not just like a guy who's going to spend his entire time screaming at you. That's the difference between a guy like Bill Parcells and a guy like Buddy Ryan. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, those are what you look at. Like, Buddy Ryan failed in the NFL as a head coach. Great defensive coordinator. But that's the difference. Like, the head coach, the manager, whatever the head coach is, his job is to be the CEO of the team. So if you're just yelling at people and that's all you're doing, you're just angry all the time, like, that's not, like, nobody's going to want to work for you. So anyway, I don't even know. Oh, we got this on coaches. Just point being, I think Keefe is an incredibly successful coach. Successful in the AHL, successful in juniors, successful in the NHL regular season. And that's what the Devils need. The Devils just need a presence. And I think that's still, I think as far as, like, I just wrote an article about what was most impactful for next season as far as the offseason moves. And Jacob Markstrom, by a bullet, is it for next season? But the most impactful move the Devils made for the health of this team is Sheldon Keefe, hiring Sheldon Keefe. And that's going to set the Devils into the next decade. One way or the other. Either he's a young guy, relatively, for coaches. So either the Devils will be here and be in the mix for the next 10 years, or something will go wrong. Keefe, couldn't find it. He'll figure out that he's, whatever the case may be. And, the Devils might have wasted this era, but I think Keefe's a great coach. I wrote an article when he got hired that he could be the best coach in this team's history. right? And it's attainable for him if he stays here for 10 years and he plays really well. And there's we don't talk about this much, but Sam, like, no coach has won more than one Stanley Cup here. Each coach has one. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
I mean, that's part of the Lou Lamoriello era, and the
Definitely
Ray
a footnote. Yeah.
Ray Shuro and Tom Fitzgerald may have held on to their coaches a little bit too long, but Tom Fitzgerald letting go Lindy Ruff, and now you have Sheldon Keefe. Sheldon Keefe has an opportunity to actually fulfill that potential because he's got the pieces. I mean, Fitzgerald just dropped everything and got him the pieces. It's just a matter of, again, will it mesh and will they have a little bit of luck on their side? The scheduling is a lot better, thank goodness. Yep. So with the travel and the back-to-back games, I think the NHL learned their lesson. When you got marquee players like Timo Meier, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, if you give them a horrible, they're simply going to break down at some point. But, again, I think the Devils, with Sheldon Keefe, he's going to be the key guy. And let's see what happens. I mean, that's the guy that's going to give me hope, not so much the player moves. Let's hopefully both goalies don't break down because of nagging age injuries, because who are you going to have to cover, at that point?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
That's all I got for you, Sam.
Oh, okay. Well, a couple of housekeeping things. Behind me on the video screen is my John Marino jersey, authentic Adidas, that came today. I did the little unboxing, putting on social media. I'm not going to say the C word like Peter Seifert, who I do like, but never say the C word to me unless it's for your consumption. And, John Marino. It's a beautiful jersey done by Cool Hockey. I was a little worried because I know Tyler Blazinski, good friend of the podcast, had an issue with his Markstrom jersey. So that's not good. But my jersey came out okay.
Except for the fact that you got traded after you bought it.
Well, you know what? Maybe next year when Devils fans are pissed off at a player, tell me which jersey I'll buy. We'll do a little fundraiser, maybe a GoFundMe, and then I'll buy that jersey, and that player's gone 3 weeks or less, guaranteed. That's how it usually works for me. I swear to you, every single time. Travis Jankowski, said when he was in New York Mets, said no one's going to be buying my jersey, so I bought his jersey. By the time I got it, he was like either on waivers or just DFA'd or whatever. Victor Kozlov, authentic Devils jersey. Guess what happens? You don't hear about him being a New Jersey Devil.
Right.
It's unbelievable. My love.
That's happened to me twice.
And Ken
it happened to me. I have a Subban jersey, and I love Subban, so I'm happy to have the PK jersey. My friend bought it for me for my wedding, so I thought that was kind of funny. That was my wedding gift, was a PK Subban jersey. He's from Boston, so like he's obviously like a big rival of the Bruins. So that was like his gift. Like, I'm going to buy you things that I hate. And then I bought a Jason Kidd's Knicks jersey, and
wow.
and then he retired to go coach the Nets, the rival, like right after I bought it. So I ended up I still have the Jason Kidd Knicks jersey. I thought it was it's an interesting keepsake at this point. But now I need I'm not a jersey guy anymore. I really only wear them for the podcasts and when I come to the games, and when I go to the games, I usually wear the Let's Go Devils jersey that we have. But I am gonna probably get my first jersey probably since I bought that kid jersey. I bought I bought the Hughes jersey when they came out with the Colorado Rockies colors because that was dope. But first jersey since then, I'm going to buy Miles McBride because he's a West Virginia guy. We love a West Virginia guy, and he's in New York. So, maybe I'll rock that on the podcast one day.
The strangest jersey, most random jersey I have is probably either Manitoba Moose and Anglestat. He was a goon.
I love their logo. Their logo's dope.
Oh, it's amazing logo. My old roommate in college, or teammate, sorry, not roommate, used to have the Minnesota Moose, and I got the Manitoba Moose. So, and this is before Moose Hedberg came out. Because that's how he got his nickname when he played for the Manitoba Moose years ago, and then, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, anyway, little history lesson there.
We love that.
Yeah.
Oh, but go to pucksandpitchforks.com. I promoted some of the things we've already done. The power rankings of the offseason moves. Todd Matthews just wrote a piece where he ranked every single New Jersey Devils roster player, every single one, ranked. Who's number one? You'll have to go to pucksandpitchforks.com to find out. I'm going to spend this week. So I'm writing big Olympics for the fan side of front page. So I have some big Olympics articles that I'm focusing on right now, but I want to do a couple postmortems, one on Alex Holtz and one on Kevin Ball, just their outlook for Calgary and Vegas. So I'm just going to assess what I think they're going to do there. Are they going to pull a Ty Smith where they completely fall in the tank, or are they going to fulfill their potential and turn into something great there? So those are what you can look forward to. Top 25 prospects are going to come at the end of the month. So still working on that. We have plenty of draft recap coverage. We have plenty of more other coverage. Trey Matthews wrote something yesterday on the draft and the prospects camp and just where everybody's at as far as, getting bigger the prospects and having a central focus. I think Dan Rice is coming out with a piece on Chico soon. So,
and happy birthday to Chico Resch, turning 76 today. Good friend of the podcast. I wished him a happy birthday before, and I think he's going to be back next season. That's my little secret. I think he's going to be back next season. I think. That's how I'm going to tease everybody. All right, I want to thank all those tuning in, dropping the podcast at midnight. Go to pucksandpitchforks.com. We'll be back next week. Till next time, let's go Devils.